Hey guys, welcome back to Mr. News Art Class. It's wonderful to see your smiling faces today. Today we're going to be practicing how to draw portraits. It's going to be super simple. We're going to draw 8 different portraits. So we're going to start by splitting our page into 8 segments. If you missed how I did that, just start with a giant plus sign throughout your page. And then split the right side down the middle and split the left side down the middle. And now we have 8 different segments in which we're going to draw 8 different portraits. Now, this past week in my classroom, I had a lot of people asking me questions like, how do I start? Do I start with the eyes? Do I start with the outline? What shape even is the head? How do I do this? So really what we're focusing on today is how to sketch out the basic foundation, and this is what we call construction. So a lot of people, here in number 1, let's do this, a lot of people will start with an ovally shape, and then they'll draw a line sort of across the middle, and then a little bit above that, and then a line down the center, and use these lines as guides for things like where should the nose be and where should the eyes be. Before we actually draw a face on that, let's move over here to number 2. And let's try different modes of construction, different ways to draw out that head shape. Maybe for this one, what we'll do is more of a boxy shape. So it's still going to be curved, but it's going to be like a rectangle made out of curves. And then again, sort of a line across the middle, a line a little higher up, and a line down the center. Next, in box number 3, this time, instead of starting with an oval or a box, we're going to start with a circle. This is going to be in the top half. And then from that circle, we're going to drop down a V shape. The center line goes straight down the middle. One of our horizontal lines goes right at the bottom of the circle, and one goes sort of where the V shape meets the circle. Next, in box number 4, this time we're going to do more of an egg shape. So we're going to make it wider. It's like an oval, but wider at the bottom. And you can see it's kind of like that one, but upside down. And just like we've been doing, a line kind of across the middle, a line a little higher up, and a line straight down the center. Now, at this point, these two are getting a little bit confusing. So what I'm going to do is go back into all 4 of these and add a little bit of a chin indicator. So down at the bottom, a little circle or oval to designate where the chin is. And now, because those chins are in different places, these two don't look like one is just upside down. They look different. Moving to box number 5. Box number 5, we're going to make almost like a figure 8 kind of shape, or what some people might call more of like an hourglass kind of shape, where it's pinched across the middle. And then a line straight across the middle. This time, instead of doing a line above it, let's do a line below it. Our center line going down the middle, and our chin. Let's make that chin a little bigger. Okay. Number 6. This time, we'll do like almost a rectangle, like perfectly straight sides, round at the top, and sort of V-shaped at the bottom. Line across the middle, line a little bit above it, or a vertical line straight down the center, and chin at the bottom. Box number 7. Well, let's see what else we can come up with. Let's try something where we have a gigantic circle, and, kind of like the one right above it here, like number 3. We're going to do the V shape underneath it. But instead of having that V shape really big, it's going to be like super, super tiny. A line straight across the middle, a line right above it, a line down the center, and our chin is going to be tiny. And now for number 8, let's actually consider proportions, okay? So for all of these so far, we've been trying to make ridiculous shapes. And they're going to be fun, they're going to be awesome, they're going to be amazing. But here, we want to actually have one where we see, like, what shape is a head for real? And what are the actual proportions? So let's start in the top half with a circle. Okay, this is the cranium. The cranium is the brain case. It's the part of your skull that holds your brain in place. Okay, kind of important, right? Let's mark the center of that circle, and you can use your fingers to measure the radius, the distance between the center point and the bottom, or any edge really, of the circle. And once you've measured that, you should drop down the same distance. Okay, so this distance is the same as this distance. Now, that mark that we just made right there is going to be where the chin is. We're not going to make the sides of the face yet. Not yet. First, let's go right across the middle between the center and the bottom of the circle. So halfway through that radius. And let's draw, this is going to be the eye line. This is where the eyes are going to be. Then, from right here at the eye line, that's where we're going to drag down the cheek and chin area. So, from here down to the chin, from the eye line down to the chin. Okay? Now, I'm going to come in here and erase. Make sure my eraser is not too huge. I'm going to erase out these little arrows because they're kind of getting in the way. You should have something that looks sort of like that. So you've got a circle. You've got the center of the circle. You've got the chin marked the same distance as the radius of the circle. And you've got the eye line marked. And you've got the jaw line coming down from the eye line to the chin. Those are the basic proportions to start with. Now, if you want, you can add other lines, like a second line across the bottom of the cranium circle. This is the nose line. That will be helpful for us. And a vertical line straight down the center. That's what we call the direction line. It's going to show us which way is the face pointing. Okay? And this is pretty accurate to the proportions of a normal human face. Now, let's go back into each and every one of these and actually turn it into a face. Now, I have just made my layer a little bit lighter so that you can see what I'm doing on top of it. For you, you might want to switch to a pen or just make these lines darker. Now, for each of these, we have a couple of lines to look at. We've got an eye line, a nose line, a directional line showing us which way the face is pointing, and we've got a chin area. So, eye line, let's draw two eyes. Nose line, let's draw the nose. Now the mouth should be somewhere in this area between the nose and the chin. The ears, the top of the ear is level with the eye line, and the bottom of the ear is level with the nose line. Now this character here has quite a round chin. We don't need to trace the whole circle, but you do have a little dip underneath your bottom lip. So we'll kind of trace in the top of that. And now a lot of you might be wondering what in the world is going to go on up here. Now the top of your head, what we shouldn't do, we shouldn't draw the hair all coming up above the head because we have something called a forehead and a hairline. So halfway between the eye line and the top of the head, we're going to have a hairline. The hairline is going to curve and come down kind of in front of the ears. So we'll give this guy some very slight sideburns. There's his hairline. And then, I don't know, maybe some curly hair over the top of his head. Boom. Now, because we used these proportions, this underlying structure, the construction line, started with an oval, you notice that this doesn't quite look like a real person. It looks like everything has kind of been shifted up, right? It looks like the chin is too big. It looks like the mouth is too high up. It looks like the eyes are too high up. And it looks like there's very little hair. But that's okay, because we are purposefully trying out different types of construction. So let's come over to our second here, and with this boxy shape, and let's try again. Let's put our eyes on the eye line. Let's put our nose on the nose line. Let's put our ears between the eye line and the nose line. Let's put our mouth between the nose and the chin. Let's indicate the top of the chin. Let's trace out the chin shape. And again, let's make it the same character, just with different constructions. So we're going to give him the same little bitty sideburns, and his hairline should curve up to halfway between the eye line and the top of the head. So about here. And then we'll give him curly hair that kind of goes up, then over, and then down. And so here you can see the same person, the same character, drawn in two very different ways. Okay? He's still got the same eyes, the same hair, the same mouth, but the shape of his head is different. And that's because we're starting with construction lines. Construction lines serve us as an underlying structure to show where everything goes. And what we would typically do is draw those with a pencil and then erase them when we're done, or draw it on a separate sheet and then trace over. So we could go into each one of these and do exactly the same thing. Make our eyes, nose, ears, the same hairstyle. Trace in the chin. And we can see how these construction lines, different styles of construction, change the character, even though everything else stays the same. What happens if we do this inverted one? He's going to have a really tiny cranium. How does that make the person feel if his cranium is super tiny compared to the rest of his head? Well, it makes him feel quite unintelligent. If you compare these two, the small cranium makes us think he's got a small brain. The large cranium makes us think he's got a big brain. So this would be great for a football player. This would be great for a scientist, a rocket scientist. And then when we get into some of these much more strange ones where we've got like this weird curvature and pinched nature, there's so many different ways. If you're like trying to draw cartoony faces, there's so many different ways to change the underlying structure that there's really no limit. And now, with something like this, with such a gigantic forehead area, we might not want the hairline to go halfway between the eye line and the top of the head. We might want it to go a little lower. So I'm going to start with the sideburn area, and then I'm just going to let the hairline still have a normal-ish forehead size, but then have the hair come around this big old honking shape. And again, because we have that huge cranium, it almost, this one's kind of like a combination between both of these, because he's got the huge cranium and the huge chin. So there's really infinite ways you can go with this. All right, here again, eyes on the eye line, nose on the nose line, mouth between the nose line and the chin. My goodness, that's a really, really big mouth. Ears between the eye line and the nose line. Hairline. Hair. Really big mouth. All right, number 7. Here we're going to have a really tiny mouth. Or at least a really tiny chin. And just go through each one of these and draw in the each of those different parts of the face. You know what I've forgotten on every single one of these is eyebrows, but that's okay because I'm not really trying to get everything perfect here. I'm just trying to show, in this video, I'm only trying to show the underlying structure and how the construction that you start with affects the whole, right? So this guy, it's not just the cranium that's huge. It's like his whole head is really wide, and then his chin is really tiny. Oops, too far. Okay, so in this last one, we see, like, these are the actual proportions of a human head. If you followed along and did this correctly, which, I mean, it's really super simple. It's just the distance between the center of the cranium and the bottom of the circle is the same as the distance from the bottom of the circle to the bottom of the chin. And the eye line is halfway between the center of the circle and the bottom of the circle, which also makes it halfway between the top of the head and the bottom of the chin. So let's put in those eyes. Let's put in that nose. Let's put in those ears between the eye line and the nose line. Oh, we forgot to draw the chin shape. But I'm just going to indicate where the top of the chin is, and then have the mouth between the nose and the chin. Trace the chin shape. Sideburns. Now, we got a dot there for the center of the circle, but that is not where the hairline is. The hairline is halfway between the eyes and the top of the head, which would make it about here, not at the center of the circle. So we're going to curve up from the sideburns to the center of the hairline. And then we're going to give this curly hair all the way around the top of the cranium. And if we look at all of these together, number 8 clearly looks the most realistic. Does that mean that numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are wrong? No, of course not. They're just different. And if we're trying to draw a realistic portrait, if we're trying to observe the real world around us, then we need to consider realistic proportions. And understanding those realistic proportions will also help us when we are trying to decide how to draw other characters. Maybe we want a character to look like a football player. We might want to draw them with a smaller cranium and a bigger chin. Maybe we want someone to be really angry all the time with their mouth open screaming. We might want a taller head. So if you're designing different characters, the way that you start your construction lines makes a huge difference in how the end drawing looks. For the next course of this video series, we're going to be focusing on this. We're going to be talking about how to use proper construction, how to draw the eyes, the nose, the mouth, and make everything look realistic. If you want to learn that, stick around for the next video. And in the meantime, you could practice with all sorts of different kinds of construction lines and just see where they take you.